Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah.
Happy? Are you happy? Yeah, the only thing that actually can make a human being happy is to perform sacrifice for Krishna. Then there's a natural, blissful, perpetuating happiness that takes place. So Vaishnavas know this, and therefore they organize their lives around the principle of always sacrificing for Krishna. And these sacrifices are actually very sweet, like worshipping Tulsi Maharani. It takes a sacrifice. Performing the Ekadashi Vrat gives one a unique experience in this world that everybody else misses, but we have the perfect excuse to fast on Ekadashi and chant more. And we also have been given full permission by Krishna and his representatives to come early in the morning to chant Hare Krishna. Other people don't get such permission. They're required to sleep in past the sun, wake up all groggy, watch television. There's an obligation by the three modes of material nature. But we've been given a reprieve. This is the special mercy of Krishna, and his representatives have given us relief. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. We're continuing our reading of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. We're now on Canto 10, Chapter 46. Uddhava visits Vrndavana. This is the summary of this chapter. This chapter describes how Sri Krishna sent Uddhava to Vraj to relieve the distress of Nanda, Yashoda, and the young gopis. One day Lord Krishna asked his intimate friend Uddhava to take news of him to Vraja and thus relieve his parents and the gopis of their misery caused by their separation from him. Riding on a chariot, Uddhava reached Vraja at sunset. He saw the cows returning home to the cowherd village, and the calves jumping here and there as their mothers followed slowly behind, weighed down by their heavy milk bags. The cowherd men and women were chanting the glories of Krishna and Balaram, and the village was attractively decorated with burning incense and rows of lamps. All this presented a scene of exceptional transcendental beauty. Nanda Maharaj welcomed Uddhava warmly into his home. The cowherd king then worshipped him as non-different from Lord Vasudeva, fed him nicely, seated him comfortably upon a bed, and then inquired from him about the welfare of Vasudeva and his sons, Krishna and Balaram. Nanda asked, "Does Krishna still remember his friends, the village of Gokula and Govardhan Hill? He protected us from a forest fire, wind and rain, and many other disasters. By remembering his pastimes again and again, we are relieved of all karmic entanglement, and when we see the places marked by his lotus feet, our minds become fully absorbed in thought of him. Gargamuni told me that Krishna and Balaram have both descended directly from the spiritual world. Just see how they have so easily dispatched Kamsa, the wrestlers, the elephant Kuvalayapida, and many other demons. As Nanda remembered Krishna's pastimes, his throat choked up with tears and he could speak no further. Meanwhile, as Mother Yashoda heard her husband speak of Krishna, The intense love she felt for her son caused a flood of milk to pour from her breasts and a torrent of tears from her eyes. Seeing the super excellent affection Nanda and Yashoda had for Sri Krishna, Uddhava commented, "You two are indeed most glorious. One who has attained pure love for the Supreme Absolute Truth in his human-like form has nothing further to accomplish." Krishna and Balaram are present in the hearts of all living beings, just as fire lies dormant within wood. These two lords see all equally, having no particular friends or enemies. Free from egoism and possessiveness, they have no father, mother, wife, or children, are never subject to birth, and have no material body. Only to enjoy spiritual happiness and deliver their saintly devotees do they appear by their own sweet will among various species of life, both high and low. Lord Krishna is not merely the son of you, O Nanda and Yashoda, but the son of all persons, as well as their mothers and father. In fact, he is everyone's dearest relation, inasmuch as nothing that is seen or heard in the past, present, or future among the moving or non-moving is independent of him. Nanda Maharaj and Uddhava passed the night talking about Krishna in this way. Then the cowherd women performed their morning worship and began churning butter, singing the glories of Sri Krishna as they busily pulled the churning ropes. The sounds of churning and singing reverberated into the sky, cleansing the world of all inauspiciousness. Look up that verse. That's a verse. When the sun rose, the gopis saw Uddhava's chariot at the edge of the cowherd village, and they thought that Akrura might have returned. But just then Uddhava finished his morning duties and presented him before them. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Suyuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Text 1. Shukadeva Goswami said, the supremely intelligent Uddhava was the best counselor of the Vrishni dynasty, a beloved friend of Lord Sri Krishna and a direct disciple of Brihaspati. Report. The Acharyas give various reasons why Lord Krishna sent Uddhava to Vrindavan. The Lord had promised the residents of Vrindavan, Ayasye, I shall return. Also, in the previous chapter, Lord Krishna promised Nanda Maharaj, Drashtum Eshyamaha, we will come back to see you and Mother Yashoda. At the same time, the Lord could not break his promise to Sri Vasudeva and Mother Devaki to finally spend some time with them after they had suffered for so many years. Therefore, the Lord decided to send his intimate representative to Vrindavan in his place. The question may be asked, why did Krishna not invite Nanda and Yashoda to visit him in Mathura? According to Srila Jiva Goswami, for the Lord to have exchanged loving feelings with Nanda and Yashoda in the same place and at the same time that he was exchanging them with Vasudeva and Devaki would have created an awkward situation in the Lord's pastimes. Thus Krishna did not invite Nanda and Yashoda to stay with him in Mathura. The residents of Vrindavan had their own way of understanding Krishna, and their feelings could not have been appropriately expressed on a regular basis in the kingly atmosphere of Mathura. Sri Uddhava is described in this verse as Buddhi Sattama, the most intelligent, and thus he could expertly pacify the residents of Vrindavan, who were feeling such intense separation from Lord Krishna. Then upon his return to Mathura, Uddhava would describe to all the members of the Vrishni dynasty the extraordinary pure love he had seen in Vrindavan. Indeed, the love the cowherd men and gopis felt for Krishna was far beyond anything the Lord's other devotees had ever experienced, and by hearing about that love, all the Lord's devotees would increase their faith and devotion. As stated in the third canto by the Lord himself, Madhavo Nyapi Man Nina. Uddhava is not even slightly different from me. Get that verse, please. Resembling Krishna so much, Uddhava was the perfect person to carry out the Lord's mission in Vrindavan. In fact, Sri Harivamsha states that Uddhava is the son of Vasudeva's brother, Devabhaga. Uddhava Devabhagasya Mahabhaga Suto Bhavat. In other words, he is a cousin brother of Sri Krishna's. Okay. So, this pastime of Uddhava going into Vrindavan has taken place after Krishna left Vrindavan with Akrura. We heard about how Akrura had gone to Vrindavan on the behest of Kamsa, because Kamsa had this intense desire to kill Krishna. He hadn't been successful in Vrindavan, even though he had sent many of his most stalwart followers who were expert at killing others, like Aghasura, Trinavarta, Putana, Bakasura. Aristasura had been there, and there was a demon every day. This is mentioned in the pastime of Aghasura, that Krishna and his friends go out into the pasturing grounds every day and into the forests to graze the cows and calves. And they play together. And to punctuate that play, because they won't stop playing, just like we see kids in this world, they keep playing until you come and tell them to stop, and then they'll keep playing until you come and tell them to stop, and they'll keep playing. And so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that when the demon would come, like Aghasura, this would make a natural break in the boys and Krishna playing together. And we see that they would then sit down, have their lunch. And in this way the day was punctuated. Of course, Kamsa wasn't satisfied, so he sent Akrura to Vrindavan to get Krishna and bring him back. And all the way into Vrindavan, Akrura was offering prayers this is the exemplary way, says Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas, to enter Vrindavan in the same mood as Akrura. As all the way into the Dham, he was thinking about seeing the Lord, how Krishna would put his lotus hand on his head and benedict him, Lord Balaram also. And he was noticing the beauty of Vrindavan as he was entering, not the least of which were the footprints of Krishna that were present visibly everywhere in Vrindavan. There's an explanation given in the pastime of Krishna chastising Kaliya of why Krishna's footprints are so visible everywhere, despite the fact that there are billions of cows and calves walking around, what to speak of all the residents of Vrindavan. And the dust is very pliable, so it can erase so much traffic could erase the footprints. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that everyone worshipped those footprints in Vrindavan, and therefore all the cows, all the calves, all the devotees, when walking through Vrindavan, would very carefully avoid stepping on Krishna's footprints, and therefore they're always preserved. And earlier, when we were reading the 10th canto, when we were driving around in the UK, we came upon a section in which the acharyas described the markings on the lotus feet of Krishna. And there's a meaning for each one of the markings. The barley corn, which is there, I'm not sure, I have seen a barley corn because I asked somebody to bring me one once. But you hear about it on the lotus feet of Krishna. If you want a logo for your company, you can use a barley corn. And that represents the good fortune that comes when you worship Krishna. There's natural good fortune because the goddess of fortune never leaves Krishna. You know, when the demons and demigods churned the milk ocean, then Lakshmi Devi came out. She looked at everybody and said, no, 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 no. And then she saw Krishna and she said, yes, yes, only, only. And she's always with Krishna. So Prabhupada pointed out, if you want Lakshmi, and everyone does, as mentioned in the 11th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Tyaktva Sudusya Jasa Repshita Raja Lakshmi, and all the demigods, what to speak of ordinary people, are always praying, oh Lakshmi, please come stay in our house. You see all over Silicon Valley, when people hang little mantras and yantras on their doors, inviting Lakshmi, please stay here with us. But she's chanchal. She doesn't stay in any one place. Have you noticed that? However, she's always with Krishna. And so Prabhupada told us that if you worship Krishna properly, automatically Lakshmi will be there. There'll be no difficulty in your life. And also the thunderbolt on Krishna's lotus feet. It is the smasher of the mountains of sin that accumulate in the hearts of those who stay here in this material world. So one who meditates on the lotus feet of Krishna gets unlimited benedictions. They go on to describe the other various markings on Krishna's lotus feet. And included in the benedictions that come from worshiping are the individual benedictions that come from each one of these markings that are there. So when Akrura came to Vrindavan and he saw Krishna's lotus feet on the ground, it's such hallowed ground that he dove from the chariot and rolled in the dust of Vrindavan. And of course, he brought back Krishna and Balaram to Mathura. Krishna killed Kamsa, and then in the last chapter before this one, Krishna had met with his spiritual master at Sandipani Muni, 2 chapters before. He had learned all the arts, and if you learn about all the arts, there's no MBA science. It's all very artistic things like learning to paint and play on different kinds of instruments. interpersonal communications of various kinds, different types of shastras he learned. And Krishna learned them, so did Balaram, immediately. They didn't take any time, they didn't have homework. They'd hear it one time and then they'd assimilate everything. And at the end of his schooling, Krishna, as is appropriate, offered his guru some dakshina and said, "What can I do for you?" He ended up going to the ocean to retrieve the son of Sandipani Muni, who had been lost in the ocean, stolen away. It was unknown by whom, but Krishna and Balaram went to the shore of the ocean, and the ocean personified then approached them and said, "How can I serve you?" They said, "Please give back the son of my teacher." He said, "I didn't take them. It was a demon named Shankachuda." So Krishna dove into the ocean. He found Shankachuda, who was encased in a conch shell. And he extracted the demon. Actually, he killed him. He took off the conch shell. He looked in the stomach of the demon, didn't find the son. So with conch shell in hand, he went to Yamaraja's abode. And when he approached, he blew the conch shell. Now, in the purports to this section, you'll find that there are several verses quoted about the effects of hearing Krishna's conch shell. And in doing daily puja, at least in the original padati that we had, that many of you have never seen, I've tried to preserve a copy, although it's disintegrating. There are verses in which one worships Krishna's conch shell as you're installing the paraphernalia for worshiping the Lord. You say various prayers to worship each piece of paraphernalia. And with the conch shell, it's mentioned that it destroys all the sins, even of demons. And there, in the Bhagavatam, it's mentioned that when Krishna blew his conch shell at the gates of Yamaraja's abode, then everyone there became liberated and went back to Godhead, just by hearing the conch. In places where there were people who were being punished by the sharp leaves of the trees, what is it called? Fried in oil. Yeah. And creamy bhojana, the various types of hellish punishments that take place. All of that stopped. The trees no longer were sharp. The oil no longer was hot. And everyone went directly back to Godhead. So you can imagine the benefits of living in or near a temple. Even you hear the conch shell before the artik. And how purifying is that? We hear that in the Nectar Devotion, that when you come to artik and you clap your hands, all the birds of sinful activity fly away. And being around Krishna, being near Krishna, hearing Krishna's conch shell, as we heard this morning when you're chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, you're actually hearing the flute of Krishna from the spiritual world. What to speak of those who have prepared themselves and accepted the Gayatri Mantra. The Gayatri Mantra also is, as we know from the Brahma Samhita, Tavinu Nidarasya Trayimurti Mayigati Spuranti Parveshashu Mukhabjani Swayambhuja Bhuvaha. That the Gayatri that comes into the ears of the devotees is actually the flute song of Sri Krishna. So one can be directly in touch with Krishna through these methods. So Krishna retrieved the son of his teacher and brought him back, and Sandipani Muni gave Krishna benedictions. He said that the teachings of the Vedas I've given you will always remain fresh in your mind. And also, whatever you speak will remain ever fresh. So when we hear Bhagavad Gita, you can hear it again and again. It never becomes old, right? There's never a time when you read the Bhagavad Gita and then you think like, oh, I already read that before, it's not interesting anymore. Manjula Kanta.
Guru Maharaj, I was wondering that this is Sandipani Muni and he's done all his thing. He's close to getting liberated. He still wants his son back. And when we talk about you're not this body, you're the soul. The soul leaves, right? Like we heard about the king who wanted to see his son, and when he comes back, he says, "This is one of many bodies. Why are you calling me back?" So why in this Leela is it different that the son comes back and he gets,
Well, those who are in these Leelas are not indifferent to their relatives or surroundings. Even Krishna, after Kurukshetra battle, it's not that he said, they're not their bodies. Refer to chapter 2 in the Bhagavad Gita. But you'll find in the first canto of the Bhagavatam that Krishna and Yudhishthira and all the relatives, they went and performed the last rites. And Yudhishthira was disconsolate that all these people had been killed on his behalf. That's how he felt anyway. That's why they had to go to Bhishma. So the workings of the two worlds are always going on. What to speak of the fact it's mentioned there that even Shankachuta was not actually a demon, but he was playing a special role. And you find that Krishna brings back Devaki's sons also, and that they had been involved in a very complex Leela. And these are natural tendencies of everybody in the world to be reconnected. So in any case, it's a part of the Leela, and it's not that people who are spiritually inclined are not involved in taking care of family and connected to relatives and so forth. So now Uddhava, after some time, Krishna had said he was coming back, so now he's gone back into Vrindavan, and he's going there to appease the residents of Vrindavan. So text 1. Shukadeva Goswami said, the supremely intelligent Uddhava was the best counselor of the Vrishni dynasty, a beloved friend of Lord Sri Krishna, and a direct disciple of Brahaspati. The Supreme Lord Hari, who relieves the distress of all who surrender to him, once took the hand of his fully devoted, dearmost friend Uddhava and addressed him as follows. Lord Krishna said, Dear gentle Uddhava, go to Vraja and give pleasure to our parents, and also relieve the gopis suffering in separation from me by giving them my message. The minds of those gopis are always absorbed in me, and their very lives are ever devoted to me. For my sake, they have abandoned everything related to their bodies, renouncing ordinary happiness in this life, as well as religious duties necessary for such happiness in the next life. I alone am their dearmost beloved, and indeed their very self. Therefore I take it upon myself to sustain them in all circumstances. Purport, here the Lord explains why he wants to send a special message to the gopis. According to the Vaishnava Acharyas, the word daihika, related to the body, refers to husbands, children, homes, and so on. The gopis loved Krishna so intensely that they could think of nothing else. Since Sri Krishna maintains ordinary devotees engaged in sadhana bhakti, devotional service and practice, he will certainly maintain the gopis, his most exalted devotees. You'll find later on too that in the relations the gopis have with their so-called husbands, this was really a farce. It was an arrangement to create intensity in the pastimes of Krishna. That'll be mentioned. My dear Uddhava, for those women of Gokula, I am the most cherished object of love. Thus, when they remember me, who am so far away, they are overwhelmed by the anxiety of separation. Purport, whatever is dear to us becomes an object of our possessiveness. Ultimately, the most dear object is our very soul, or ourself. Thus, things in a favorable relationship to ourself also become dear to us, and we try to possess them. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, among countless millions of such dear things, Sri Krishna is the most dear of all, even dearer than one's own self. The gopis had realized this fact, and thus they were stunned in separation from the Lord because of their intense love for him. Although they would have given up their lives, they were kept alive by the Lord's transcendental potency. 6. Simply because I have promised to return to them, my fully devoted cowherd girlfriends struggle to maintain their lives somehow or other. Is everyone okay? Purport. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, although the gopis of Vrindavan were apparently married, their husbands actually had no contact whatsoever with their supremely attractive qualities of form, taste, fragrance, sound, touch, and so on. Rather, their husbands merely presumed, these are our wives. In other words, by Lord Krishna's spiritual potency, the gopis existed entirely for his pleasure, and Krishna loved them in the mood of a paramour. In fact, the gopis were manifestations of Krishna's internal potency, internal nature, his supreme pleasure potency. And on the spiritual platform, they attracted the Lord by their pure love. Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, Lord Krishna's parents in Vrindavan, had also attained a most exalted state of love for Krishna, and they too could barely maintain their lives in his absence. Thus Uddhava would also give special attention to them. Shukadeva Goswami said, thus addressed, O king, Uddhava respectfully accepted his master's message, mounted his chariot, and set off for Nanda Gokula. The fortunate Uddhava reached Nanda Maharaj's pastures just as the sun was setting, and since the returning cows and other animals were raising dust with their hooves, his chariot passed unnoticed. Gokula resounded on all sides with the sounds of bulls in rut, fighting with one another for fertile cows, with the mooing of cows, burdened by their udders, chasing after their calves, with the noise of milking, and with the white calves jumping here and there, with the loud reverberation of flute playing, and with the singing of the all-auspicious deeds of Krishna and Balaram by the cowherd men and women, who made the village resplendent with their wonderfully ornamented attire. The cowherds' homes in Gokula appeared most charming with their abundant paraphernalia for worship of the sacrificial fire, the sun, unexpected guests, the cows, the brahmanas, the forefathers, and the demigods. On all sides lay the flowering forest, echoing with flocks of birds and swarms of bees, and beautified by its lakes, crowded with swans, Vrndavana ducks, and bowers of lotuses. Purport. Although Gokula was merged in grief because of separation from Lord Krishna, the Lord expanded his internal potency to cover that particular manifestation of Vraja and allow Uddhava to see the normal bustle and joy of Vraja at sunset. As soon as Uddhava arrived at Nanda Maharaj's home, Nanda came forward to meet him. The cowherd king embraced him in great happiness and worshipped him as non-different from Lord Vasudeva. Purport. Uddhava looked just like Nanda's son Krishna and gave pleasure to anyone who saw him. Thus, although Nanda was absorbed in thoughts of separation from Krishna, when he saw Uddhava coming toward his house, he became aware of external events and eagerly went out to embrace his exalted visitor. So, Mukharvinda was smiling. What are you smiling about?
Just somehow the remembrance of Uddhava Kund came in mind because we
Uddhava Kund, remembering Uddhava Kund, yeah. It's a very sublime jewel of a temple along the Parikram path in Govardhan. And there's so much about it. When we leave the ashram in the morning, just after Mangalarti to go on Govardhan Parikrama, we normally arrive at Uddhava Kund probably a couple hours later. A couple hours of walking, no? No. It's not 45 minutes. It's a long walk. 1 hour. Because the sun's just coming up. Because you have to go all the way around Nrsimha temple, everything. Yeah, Uddhava. Well, you could do it in an hour, I don't know. Because it's right on the cusp of Radhakund, right before you get to Radhakund. It's just a little while longer, another half hour from Uddhavakund to Radhakund. In any case, there's a pujari that's been there since as long as I can remember. He's always sitting there. And you go in and you can give some donation. He'll give you a little charnamrita. If you put your head down close to him, he'll give you a blessing. He always says the same, happy, 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 happy. So going on, these parikrams around Vrindavan, around Govardhan Hill, and each place that you go, it leaves a memory. There's a sweetness there. You see the devotees, you see the smile of the deities, and when you, if it's very hot, once I was there during Purushottam Mas, and it was very, very hot in Vrindavan, because it was still September. It was right after September 11th in 2001. And we'd go around Govardhan Hill, and I just remember anytime you offered dandavats, then you could feel the warmth of the ground on your skin. And those memories from the Dham, they go inside you. And walking on the dust of Vrindavan, just walking, have no other business but walking. And it's a kind of service. You could see the residents of Vrindavan if you stay at the ashram at ISKCON right on the marg, from one vantage point looking down the driveway out the gate all day long, all night long sometimes. The people are just walking around Govardhan with such utsahan, so much enthusiasm. And there's no reason for it, no worldly reason. It's all coming from this spirit of spontaneous devotion. Very simple people also. One year we set up a book table right outside the gate, and the devotee, what's his name, very tall devotee from Columbus, the doctor, Navina, Prem Vivas Prabhu. He's a big imposing figure, and he would be out there preaching, and there's whole villages would be coming on the parikram together. Or large families, 30 people. And they'd stop, and Prem Vilas would be showing them the books from the table, talking about Krishna consciousness. And right then and there, after about a half an hour, they'd surrender to him, and they say, you become our guru, you come to our village. They're so simple and sweet. And then they, of course, I don't think he took them up on that. But the nature of the people who come to Govardhan during that time, and they're just walking, if you watch them, then their spirit of spontaneous devotion, it just touches your heart a little bit. It enters in. And here and there you pick up these things. There's something intangible, that you pick up in the Holy Dham that you can't get anywhere else. And that's why when devotees go there, they spend a little time, and if they even have one incident where they taste a little sweetness, despite any difficulty in getting there to the Dham and getting settled there or finding a place, and if you have to go through all the crowds in the Mangalartik or whatever, still, if you get one experience there, it goes in and it changes you. And so many times devotees, they don't want to leave. And when they do leave, they come home to wherever they're from, and they're feeling this kind of separation. What am I doing here? It's dead. Whenever I get back to Burlingame, I always look around and go, where's the cows? And there's no cows, only dogs. Everyone walking the dog. And the vibration changes, and you can feel it. Even when you're leaving Vrindavan, there's a way in which, just after you leave the last area of circumference of the Dham, then you can feel a little shift. And you get to New Delhi, and it's diminished. You go through the Delhi airport. Maybe you'll meet a few people. They say, Radhe, Radhe. But so many other people are just in business mode. They're going here and there. And you're thinking, why isn't everybody in Vrindavan? So the Dham is it's a place that anyone can go and feel this. And we read about the residents there, how they're fully steeped in thinking of Krishna 24 hours a day, in loving ecstasy for Krishna. So Uddhava's now experiencing that. After Uddhava had eaten first-class food, had been seated comfortably on a bed, and been relieved of his fatigue by a foot massage and other means, Nanda inquired from him as follows. Purport: Srila Jiva Goswami mentions that Nanda had a servant massage Uddhava's feet, since Uddhava was Nanda's nephew. Nanda Maharaj said, "My dear, most fortunate ones, does the son of Shura fare well now that he is free and has rejoined his children and other relatives?" Fortunately, because of his own sins, the sinful Kamsa has been killed along with all his brothers. He always hated the saintly and righteous Yadus. Does Krishna remember us? Does he remember his mother and his friends and well-wishers? Does he remember the cowherds and their village of Braj, of which he is the master? Does he still remember the cows, Vrindavan forest, and Govardhan hill? Will Govinda return even once to see his family? If he ever does, we may then glance upon his beautiful face with its beautiful eyes, nose, and smile. Purport: now that Krishna had become a prince in the great city of Mathura, Nanda had lost hope that he would come back to live in the simple cowherd village of Vrindavan. But he hoped against hope that Krishna would come back at least once to visit the simple cowherd folk who had raised him from birth. We were saved from the forest fire, the wind and rain, the bull and serpent demons, from all such insurmountable, deadly dangers by that very great soul, Krishna. As we remember the wonderful deeds Krishna performed, his playful sidelong glances, his smiles and his words, O Uddhava, we forget all our material engagements. When we see the places where Mukunda enjoyed his sporting pastimes, the rivers, hills, and forests he decorated with his feet, our minds become totally absorbed in him. In my opinion, Krishna and Balaram must be two exalted demigods who have come to this planet to fulfill some great mission of the demigods. Such was foretold by Garga Rishi. After all, Krishna and Balaram killed Kamsa, who was as strong as 10,000 elephants, as well as the wrestlers Chanura and Mushtika and the elephant Kuvalayapita. They killed them all sportingly, as easily as a lion disposes of small animals. Purport: here Nanda means to say, not only did Garga Muni declare that these boys are divine, but just see what they have done. Everyone is talking about it. With the ease of a royal elephant breaking a stick, Krishna broke a powerful giant bow 3 talas long. He also held a mountain aloft for 7 days with just one hand. Purport: according to Acharya Vishwanath, a tala, palm tree, is a measurement of about 60 hastas or 90 feet. Thus the great bow Krishna broke was 270 feet long. Snap. Here in Vrindavan, Krishna and Balaram easily destroyed demons like Pralamba, Dhenuka, Arishta, Trinavarta, and Paka, who had themselves defeated both demigods and other demons. Shukadeva Goswami said, thus intensely remembering Krishna again and again, Nanda Maharaj, his mind completely attached to the Lord, felt extreme anxiety and fell silent, overcome by the strength of his love. As Mother Yashoda heard the descriptions of her son's activities, she poured out her tears and milk flowed from her breasts out of love. Purport: from the very day that Krishna had left for Mathura, Mother Yashoda, though counseled and consoled by hundreds of men and women, could see nothing but the face of her son. She kept her eyes closed to everyone else and cried constantly. Thus she could not recognize Uddhava, treat him with parental affection, ask him any questions, or give him any message for her son. She was simply overwhelmed with love for Krishna. Uddhava then joyfully addressed Nanda Maharaj, having clearly seen the supreme loving attraction he and Yashoda felt for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport: if Uddhava had seen Nanda and Yashoda actually suffering, he would not have reacted with joy. But in fact, all emotions on the spiritual platform are transcendental bliss. The so-called anguish of the pure devotees is another form of loving ecstasy. This was clearly seen by Uddhava, and thus he spoke as follows. Sri Uddhava said, O respectful Nanda, certainly you and Mother Yashoda are the most praiseworthy persons in the entire world. Since you have developed such a loving attitude toward Lord Narayan, the spiritual master of all living beings. Purport: understanding Nanda's mood as expressed by his statement, Manye Krishnam cha Ramam cha pratavyiha surotamau. I think Krishna and Rama must be two exalted demigods. Uddhava here referred to Krishna as Lord Narayan. 31. These two lords, Mukunda and Balaram, are each the seed and womb of the universe, the creator of his creative potency. They enter the hearts of living beings and control their conditioned awareness. They are the primeval supreme. Purport: the word vilakshana means either distinctly perceiving or confused, depending on how the prefix V is understood in context. In the case of enlightened souls, vilakshana means perceiving the correct distinction between the body and the soul. And thus Lord Krishna is indicated by the word ishate, guides the spiritually advancing soul. The other meaning of vilakshana, confused or bewildered, clearly applies to those who have not understood the difference between the soul and the body, or the distinction between the individual soul and the Supreme Soul. Such bewildered living beings do not go back home, back to Godhead, to the eternal spiritual world, but rather achieve temporary destinations according to the laws of nature. It is understood from all Vaishnava literature that Sri Rama, Balaram, here accompanying Lord Krishna, is non-different from him, being his plenary expansion. The Lord is one, yet he expands himself, and thus Lord Balaram in no way compromises the principle of monotheism. It is also a reminder in this verse of how Krishna reciprocates with everyone, and those who want to forget him. Krishna says in the Gita, 15th chapter, Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto matak smitir jnanam apohanam cha. So it means that he's the source of remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So if someone wants to forget Krishna, then Krishna empowers that person by giving him the intelligence to forget him. This is an indication of the way in which Krishna honors the free will of every living entity and gives them an opportunity to go in the direction that they'd like to go. So in the Gita, Krishna explains our situation, and that at any time we can change our course, change our mind, and we can direct our energy towards him in loving service and inquire from those who are already in contact with Krishna. And then from within the heart, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. Krishna gives the full intelligence of how to approach him, how to associate with devotees, where the great devotees are, gives inspiration, how to read the Vedic Shastra and be in contact with him through chanting his holy name. So if one gives an indication that he or she wants to approach Krishna, then Krishna makes all arrangements. And in the 11th canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Uddhava says that if I had a lifetime of Brahma, I wouldn't be able to show gratitude enough for you, Krishna, because you appear internally as the Chaitya Guru, and externally you appear as the Instructor Guru and the Diksha Guru. These are all your manifestations. You can look at verse 11:29:6. I'll say, please repeat. It's a very important verse. And it's spoken by Uddhava, as later on Krishna and Uddhava have a prolonged conversation. Naivo payantya pachitim kavayastavesha Brahma yushapi kritam riddham udasmaranta Yontar bahistanubritam ashubham vadunvam Acharya chaitya vapusha swagatim vyanakti. Now here's the word for word. Na eva, not at all. Upayanti, are able to express. Apachitam, their gratitude. Kavaya, learned devotees. Tava, your. Isha, O Lord. Brahma Ayusha, with a lifetime equal to Lord Brahma's. Api, in spite of. Kritam, magnanimous work. Rita, increased. Muda, joy. Smarantaha, remembering. Ya, who. Anta, within. Bahi, outside. Tanubratam, of those who are embodied. Ashubham, misfortune. Vidunvan, dissipating. Acharya, of the spiritual master. Chaitya, of the supersoul. Vapusha, by the forms. Swa, own. Gatim, path. Vyanakti, shows. O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they were endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Brahma, for you appear in two features, externally as the Acharya and internally as the Supersoul, to deliver the embodied living being by directing him how to come to you. Purport. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Lord Krishna is 10 million times more dear to a devotee than life itself. I'm just letting it sink in. And according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, even by rendering devotional service for the total duration of 1,000 universal creations, a devotee cannot repay the debt he feels to the Lord for having awarded him loving service to the Lord's lotus feet. The Lord appears within the heart as the Supersoul and externally both as the spiritual master and as his literary incarnation, the supreme Vedic knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam. And now you can make some comments or questions. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I had a question that when it's mentioned that Nand Maharaj, Yashoda and the gopis are feeling separation.
A little more volume on that mic, please. It's the red one.
So in the description we read, we saw that Nand Maharaj, Yashoda, Mother Yashoda and the gopis are feeling separation from Krishna. But till now there has not been mention of Krishna's friends feeling separation from Krishna. So is there any reason for that?
Well, just because of context, we haven't come to that part, but if you want a summary of everything that's happening in Vrindavan, you can read the Nectar of Devotion, which I'm sure you have, but you'll remember that there you'll hear sections of the character. There are particular sections in the Nectar Devotion that describe the particular characteristics of the relationships by category that the devotees have. And there it describes very particularly what happened to the cowherd boys, his friends, after Krishna left. There are many different verses and explanations of how disconsolate they were. Everybody was in Vrindavan. But there you can hear that. But as of now, it just hasn't been mentioned, yeah. Yes, you're welcome.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Actually, I had to tell an incident, then I had a question, a follow-up question. What happened? Actually, a few days ago in office, I was hearing to some kirtan, Hare Krishna kirtan, and somehow, it got on the speaker. So
went out to the whole building.
Yeah, so I tried to stop it, because it's working environment, but it went on for at least, I think, 2 minutes. Then
that's a long time.
Somehow stopped it. So I had a colleague who is just right in the other cube. So he intentionally came and he said that that was really nice music, and he then pointed out I placed a Gita and a Bhagavatam. So he started asking about those books from himself, and then he shared what philosophy he follows, and so just wanted to know, what is that has structured him, and it's just I got introduced to him a day before actually, but he started sharing all his spiritual things, and he wanted to know about mine. So actually, what is the reason, or
what's the reason for what?
That he became so interested, so open, and started though even I haven't preached him anything.
I mean, when devotees go out to teach Krishna consciousness to others or in public, they quickly notice that there are certain people who are ready. And if we look at the Bhagavad Gita 13:24, that's not it. 26, two more. Krishna says, please repeat, Anye tvevam majananta Shrutvani bhya upasate Tepi chatitarantyeva Mrityum shruti-parayana. Translation, again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. Srila Prabhupada's purport. This verse is particularly applicable to modern society because in modern society, there is practically no education in spiritual matters. Some of the people may appear to be atheistic or agnostic or philosophical, but actually there is no knowledge of philosophy. As for the common man, if he is a good soul, then there is a chance for advancement by hearing. This hearing process is very important. Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gave great stress to hearing. Because if the common man simply hears from authoritative sources, he can progress, especially according to Lord Chaitanya, if he hears the transcendental vibration, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It is stated, therefore, that all men should take advantage of hearing from realized souls and gradually become able to understand everything. The worship of the Supreme Lord will then undoubtedly take place. Lord Chaitanya has said that in this age no one needs to change his position, but one should give up the endeavor to understand the absolute truth by speculative reasoning. One should learn to become the servant of those who are in knowledge of the Supreme Lord. If one is fortunate enough to take shelter of a pure devotee, hear from him about self-realization, and follow in his footsteps, one will be gradually elevated to the position of a pure devotee. Did you hear that? You did? Shall I read it again? If one is fortunate enough to take shelter of a pure devotee, hear from him about self-realization, and follow in his footsteps, one will be gradually elevated to the position of a pure devotee. Do you like that? Yes. But not very much? Yes. Okay. In this verse particularly, the process of hearing is strongly recommended, and this is very appropriate. Although the common man is often not as capable as so-called philosophers, faithful hearing from an authoritative person will help one transcend this material existence and go back to Godhead, back to home. So that's why the devotees go out and meet people. They talk about Krishna because there are sincere, simple people who just by hearing then naturally become attracted. And Krishna makes such arrangements that they can hear things. I wrote in my book something Mitra Sena Prabhu told me. He was in the Berkeley Temple. This was in the 1970s. And he was going out to the Vista Point to distribute books. You know where that is? If you go to the end of the Golden Gate Bridge, there's a little area where you can look out and see the rest of the bay. So it used to be we could pretty much go everywhere and distribute books and do things. Things have become a lot tighter these days. In any case, he was there distributing books, and there was a young punk who was very impudent, and he wanted to kind of take advantage of a Hare Krishna. So he said, I'll take the book, I'll give a donation, but first sign it, put it in my name. What was the guy's name? Hector. So he said, okay, what's your name? And he said, Hector. He wrote to Hector from Mitra. And so then Hector took the book and he goes, okay, here's $1. Because he knew the book was worth a lot more, but he wanted to, say, ha-ha. So he took the book, ha-ha, I gave you $1, and he left. And Mitra said, it was okay. Of course, back then, we had a different mindset, because when we distributed a book, we reasoned that you had to get at least 5 for every book. Otherwise, it was a huge disaster. But he said, it was no problem for him somehow or other. He tolerated. And then the next day, Mitra was at the temple, and he got a call from the temple president. He said, there's a guy here named Hector, and he wants to talk to you. And he thought, oh, that guy came back. So he went out, and it was a different Hector. Now, I don't know if you do a search for the name Hector, but it's not a really common name. But what had happened was Hector I took the book and abandoned it. And he actually went to Chinatown, which is back into the city, and he left it sitting in a window of a store. And Hector II was walking down the street, and he saw this book sitting in the window, and he went, actually was outside. He didn't go in the store, he left it leaning on the outside. So Hector II picked it up from outside, and he looked at it, and he opened it. He said, to Hector from Mitra. It just so happened that Hector II was on a spiritual search. He had been praying to show me the way. So when he opened, he said, oh my God, who's Mitra? So he looked at the addresses in the back of the book, and he found the closest one was the Berkeley Temple. So he called up, he said, I'm coming over. I want to meet Mitra. Is he there? And the temple president, Charu, said, yeah, he's here. So he came over there, and all this, Hector II explained to Mitra of what had happened. And so there's a way in which Krishna's always taking trouble to connect sincere people to the teachings. And your friend in the next cubicle or whatever you live in, wherever you work, was one of those people. He heard it, he interpreted it as the flute song of Krishna, and wanted to surrender. So now you have to guide him for the rest of your life. Other questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for the wonderful description about the Dham. And actually, I just remember, I'm in the half circle. You mean the full circle. I'm in the half, just going to the
Oh, just half. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's true. That's true, because we used to do the whole parikram every day, and then as we got older, we started doing a half parikram every day. And so, good point. Understood. Guruji had a point? Okay. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I listen about Gopi, and maybe it's my lovely place in Srimad-Bhagavatam. It's Chaitanya Madhya Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita 13:141. When Akrura came to Radharani and speak with her when she was without Krishna first time. And it's like that. The Gopi are not like the mystic yogis. They will never be satisfied simply by meditation on your lotus feet and imitating the so-called yogis. Teaching the Gopis about meditation is another kind of duplicity. When they are instructed to undergo mystic yoga practice, they are not all satisfied. On the contrary, they become more and more angry with you. One more place, 1 second. It's the same Madhya Lila, 13:136. It's not translation, it's purport. Unless they were forced, they never liked to meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. Rather, they preferred to take the lotus feet of the Lord and place them on their breasts. Yeah, and like for me, who is Gopi? Gopi is incarnation of Radharani. And when Akrura or Krishna sometimes try and teach them or give some lecture, they every time angry. They never listen him. They, Krishna, Akrura, we don't want thinking, we want to do. And now I see that you can't stop women. You try, please sit, listen, do nothing, try and understand, but they every time try and do something. You can't stop their service. They every time want to be in service. And meditation, for them, it's like nothing. And here too, I see this point. But sometimes some who translate and make purports, they only meditation on lotus feet, and I don't understand what is the point.
Okay, so a couple points. I mean, there are many, many points that we can make in that context. Thanks for bringing these important verses and the whole concept out. Krishna actually sent Uddhava to Vrndavana for Uddhava's education. He didn't send Uddhava to instruct the gopis, but he wanted Uddhava as his most intimate associate to see the level of devotion that is unparalleled in the world. Because of course, Uddhava is described as one of the three best of all Krishna's devotees, Haridasyavaryu. And Krishna wanted to educate him. He also had a plan for Uddhava, and you find this out later in the 11th canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, when Krishna's leaving the planet. He confides in Uddhava. And this is much of the teaching of the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. And when Krishna is leaving the world, he tells Uddhava that he should go to the Badarik ashram and there instruct the residents about the pinnacle of pure devotional service. And part of the training that Krishna gave to Uddhava was to send him with apparently these messages for the gopis, and he gave him these instructions, like just meditate on me and so forth, which made them angry. Now, And so Uddhava could see, actually, they had a different standard of devotion altogether. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments later, and you mentioned that some people write commentaries and then they see, just see, Bhagavatam's really about meditation. Or it's really about, because this is the instruction that Krishna is giving through Uddhava to the gopis in Vrindavan. So actually meditate on my all-pervading form and so forth. This must be the highest thing. So in his commentary in the 11th canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the Bhagavatam, it's Krishna's incarnation, and it also, as its incarnation, has a feature of Mohini Murti. So Mohini Murti came to bewilder the demons because they were attached to the nectar, but Mohini came and bewildered the demons and said, hey, how about it? Can I have it? And they're like, yeah, sure, take it. And in a similar way, the Bhagavatam, says Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, is there to bewilder those who have a desire for something else other than pure devotional service, and offers these various other kinds of teachings in various contexts. And people that don't have association with pure devotees will misunderstand them by speculation and say, aha, this is the path of Gyan. And this is Krishna's arrangement for them. So that is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation of how these various kinds of contrasts in Krishna's teachings in Vrindavan are taken, and one of the meanings of them, or the purposes. And some we have from the internet. Yes.
This is Sundaranand Prabhu from a long time ago. He sent this message. I was
a long time ago means
like
what?
In the beginning of your
beginning
lecture.
Of the millennium?
Like some Satyuga.
The end of Dwapara Yuga.
I was just reflecting from the first canto where Krishna comes back from Dwarka and devotees are enlivened by Krishna coming back, and Krishna blows his conch shell. And Prabhupada comments in the purport that devotees become enlivened hearing the conch shell.
Yeah, if you live in a temple, then all day long you hear the artiks going on because the conch shell blows. When I grew up in a temple, I was always taught, whenever you hear the conch shell, no matter where you are in the temple or on the grounds, you offer your obeisances. Because you're doing service, you can't go to the artik, but still offer your obeisances when you hear the conch. But it's always a unique environment when you live in the temple because you hear the worship going on, the vibration is there, it's very powerful. So it's an experience that everyone should have. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. When we read that when Uddhava entered Vrindavan, through Krishna's potency, he did not let him see the grief felt by the people, Vrajavasis there. Is there a reason why he did not let him see that emotion, like how sad they are from the separation of Krishna?
Why he didn't let Uddhava see? It was mentioned in the last purport, right? Is that what you're referring to? He said, do you remember where it was? Yeah. If Uddhava had seen Nanda and Yashoda actually suffering, he would have not reacted with joy. But in fact, all emotions on the spiritual platform are transcendental bliss. It doesn't mean here that he never saw it. Just, it's saying in this context he didn't see it, but it's not that he never saw it, because in other places we see how Uddhava actually was able to witness the range of emotions that the devotees had in Vrindavan. And was quite taken aback by it, and realized that actually these devotees are real devotees. They're on a high level. And he prayed, if I could just take birth as a clump of grass somewhere nearby, and when the residents of Vrndavana walked by, maybe some of the particles of dust from their feet would land on me, and that would be my perfection. In fact, that prayer is engraved at the Uddhava Kund on the wall there in Sanskrit, so when you go in there you can see that prayer. But in this context he didn't see it, but in other contexts he does. See the ecstasy of separation. Okay, yes, one more.
Gurumaj, you spoke about the Govardhan Parikrama and how, a little bit of the dham always comes home with you. You take a little bit of it home with you. I had a thought when I had gone last time with my family, and I had gone long time ago to Vrindavan, and we were not going to Vrindavan as far as everybody else was concerned. I was very clear we were going to Vrindavan. And being there, it was always on my mind when I went in and while I was there that I should get the Srimad-Bhagavatam says that, there's a verse that says that if you're just going to go to a place of pilgrimage just to take a dip and come out, or just attend a place of pilgrimage without getting any realization from a transcendental, without listening to the lectures of a advanced Vaishnava or a pure soul, then you have not benefited from that pilgrimage. There's a phrase that comes, and I was thinking that when we go with you on yatra, that's a default benefit. We will get that benefit. When we go alone, like with family members or with others, like when I visited Sri Rangam, how do I get that benefit? Do I just keep my ears open and wait for Krishna to express? Which I did, and I did get a lot of wonderful realizations. But is there an instruction that we carry in our heart when we go to these places and we don't have people like you with us?
Well, when you go to the Dham, you can study the mood of Akrura as he's entering, and you can offer prayers when you're entering into Vrindavan, and when you get down from your car, you can roll on the ground, offer obeisances, and keep in mind whenever you're moving about the Dham that it's not an ordinary place. When you're settling in and you're finding out where to get bottled water in your room and one of those mosquito zappers and things like that, you may be in the shop and this and that, but all the time remember that you're in a special place. And then it's also helpful if you're by yourself to have some kind of program where you're hearing. And when we go around on Parikram, even we stop in various places and we'll hear something, we'll recite prayers. When you go before the deities in Vrindavan, you've memorized all these prayers, right? So this is something nice to offer when you go around Vrindavan. For instance, if you go to Radha Raman temple, I was once there with one of my godbrothers who I spent a lot of time with in the Dham, and we go around to various temples together. And one day we went in to see Radha Raman, and it was near closing time, and we started the Brahma Samhita. And we were so enthusiastic, we were used to chanting it together all the time, and we were chanting, and all the pujaris were running around getting ready to close. And they were just about to ready to close the curtains, but the head pujari noticed that we were really leaning into these prayers and we weren't finished yet. So he looked at the other pujaris and he goes like this. And he held it open. And we were thinking, that the Krishna, we were so, we felt such a reciprocation from Krishna that wow, they kept the curtain open so he kept the curtain open so we could finish our prayers. So when you go around to see the various deities, offer something. And one of the best things to offer is these prayers. You can go in, the Upadeshamrita, when you stand before the deity, you can chant those. Or when you go to Radhakund, we always stand on the bank of the Radhakund before we take our bath, and we'll recite the Upadeshamrita first. And then also Brahma Samhita when we go over to Shama. You take a dip in Radhakund, and then you come out, you go back, you go into Shamakund, which is right across, then you come back and you go in Radhakund at the end. It gives you a little time to recite various prayers before you go in, and also when you're taking your bath. You can come back out.
Does that amount to the same thing? To take the association?
Yeah, main thing is you should be absorbed like that, and if you get an opportunity, you can go to the class at the Krishna Balaram Mandir in the morning, go out if you're way to hear the Bhagavatam and things like that. Really, it refers, what I mean by it, yasyasti buddhi kunapetu rashrike swadi kalatrarishu om edidi yat tirta buddhi salile nakarichich janishu abhigeshu sa eva gokara this verse, actually, it's spoken by Krishna, no? Look it up. I think Krishna spoke this verse, but he's just saying, don't go to the holy place in a kind of fruitive mentality. Yes, Lord Krishna speaking this. Sometimes people go and they have a kind of fruitive idea. Also, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta pointed out that what will you see unless you hear? And that you'll find in the story when Srila Prabhupada, you'll read in the Lilamrita, how he went to join his Guru Maharaj on the parikram. And the parikram went for 10 days, but Srila Prabhupada could only go for like a day and a half because he was busy. He had business, he had family and everything, but he figured, I'll make the trip and I'll go as much as this is what I can do. So when he got there was an opportunity for a lot of the yatris to go and see Sheshashaya Vishnu, the last day that the deity would be open. Or they could stay and listen to the talk of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He was giving a lecture that night. So most of the yatris went to see the deity, and a few stayed back to hear Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Among them was Abai, who wasn't initiated yet. And later on, when Srila Prabhupada was recommended for initiation to his guru said, oh yes. He said, I marked him. He likes to hear. He stays and does not go away. And in that lecture, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had noted that so many people had left to see the deity and didn't stay for his talk. And he said, what will they see? He said, you actually see by hearing. When you hear Bhagavatam from the Vaishnava, then you can actually see and understand. In fact, in that verse from Karabhajana Muni, Tirtasparam Shiva Virinchi Nutam Sharanyam, it's mentioned that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet are the repository of all the holy places. And in the purport, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, if you can't afford to go to the Dham, like a lot of people can't, then if you just worship Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you get the result of going to all the holy places. Narottam Das Thakur even says in one place, this idea of going on pilgrimage is a kind of phantasmagoria. And in the sense, some people, they just go around one place, look here, and they don't really change so much because they're not lined up properly, and it's the wrong mood. And practically they go and they if they take bath there, they just leave all their sins. And the pure devotee goes there and takes bath and cleans it all up. Yes.
Just in line with what you were saying, Prabhu, this was a memorization verse for Bhakti Vaibhava, and it clearly explains what you just said. It's 5:18:11 Bhagavatam. By associating with persons for whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead Mukunda is the all-in-all, one can hear of his powerful activities and soon come to understand them. The activities of Mukunda are so potent that simply by hearing of them, one immediately associates with the Lord. For a person who constantly and very eagerly hears the narrations of the Lord's powerful activities, the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead in the form of sound vibrations, enter within his heart and cleanses it of all contamination. On the other hand, although bathing in the Ganges diminishes bodily contaminations and infections, this process and the process of visiting holy places can cleanse the heart only after a long time. Therefore, who is the sane man who will not associate with devotees to quickly perfect his life?
Perfect verse.
I was just thinking that when he was saying that when you come to Burlingame, you feel like there are no cows and all that. And then I thought like how much austerity you are taking so we can get the benefit of this verse in Silicon Valley. So thank you, Prabhu.
You're taking the austerity. Okay, Prabhu, good to see you back. Please. Hare Krishna. Welcome back to Shalabahu, Prabhu.
Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisance.
Hare Krishna.
All the greatness go to the Guru Sri Prabhupada and our Guru Parampara. May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
The powerful things I heard today, that the Krishna will be 10 million times helping and supporting within the devotees, that life, than the light itself. That I was wondering if you can give a little more nectar of that explanation.
Yeah, it says that the devotees consider we could maybe go back to their relationships, naivo payam yapachitum kabaya tavesha. There it is, down, purport. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Lord Krishna is 10 million times more dear to a devotee than life itself. So the devotees, the explanation is there. We can understand how dear our life is to us, and in the perverted way in which I consider my life to be my body, everyone works very hard, to say the least, to maintain the body, to make sure it's comfortable, make sure it's decorated and glorified. And we can understand also the attachment we have to our bodily relations, especially children and so forth. But actually, when we leave the body's no longer important to us, because the actual object of attraction is gone, the soul. But then, Atmanama Kilatmanam, what is the soul of our soul? If you can imagine how attracted we are and entranced by the very presence that we're in the body, then we can see, when we understand what's the soul of our soul, the very support of our life, the origin of our life, how much more we'd be attracted to that original source, which is Krishna. So, I mean, any kind of language like this is meant to just emphasize that it's so much unlimited we can't even understand it, the intensity of that love and appreciation that the devotees have for Krishna and their relationship with him. Therefore, if one is able to get a glimpse of one's relationship with Krishna through chanting the holy names and performing the other processes of bhakti yoga, then we'll be naturally pulled in that direction. It's no longer a struggle, but because of the natural intensity that's already there, the propensity to love Krishna is naturally residing in the heart, but it needs to be reignited to the process of bhakti. And when it is, then these feelings of intense attachment to Krishna arise, and the devotee becomes happy all the time in his or her loving relationship with Krishna. Okay, last point before we take a 3-minute break, before the last part of the program, comes from the internet.
This is Manharini Devi Dasi from Houston, Texas. She's saying how to...
Who said Haribol? You know her? Okay, that's for Texas, yeah. Say her name again.
How to keep the enthusiasm in...
But who is it?
Manharini Devi Dasi.
Manharini?
Manharini Devi Dasi.
Manharini, one who takes away the mind? Manharini, that's a pretty nice name. Okay, Manharini Devi Dasi says the following.
She asks how to keep the enthusiasm in bhakti going when you feel the going is getting difficult.
Get in a japa circle. You have to be inventive and find the things, always reinvent yourself. Don't take it for granted that you're just going to cruise across the finish line. You have to recollect all your energies all the time. Assume that you'll be overwhelmed by the material energy. Assume that your mind will be carried away. And try to put yourself in situations where you rekindle your devotion every day. That's good sadhana. You plan for it and try to get something every day. You'll find that if you're able to develop a certain momentum in your practice by engineering your environment so that you're always around people who are enthusiastic, then you can get to a point where it's easier to stay spiritually fit. Just like physically also, if you let yourself go and you don't exercise, you just eat anything you want, then after a while you'll notice that it's really hard to move around and your bones hurt and everything. And then it's also hard to get back in shape again. It takes a lot longer. But if you just stay physically healthy, then it's first of all an impetus to stay in that condition, and also you have muscle memory, you'll stay there. So there are things you can do. Like I try to keep in touch with devotees who are naturally encouraging. And it's just what they do. I stay in touch with Srivas Pandit Prabhu. Right, Srivas Prabhu? Was that you calling me just now? I have a program with Srivas Pandit Prabhu. We went through the Bhakti Vaibhav program together. He had actually come to my house and tutor me in the material. We learned the verses together, and now we're doing the Bhaktivedanta together. And so, was it 2 days ago, I was on a walk, and I called him up, said, let's do some studying, I'm on a walk. So, for half an hour while I was walking, he was reading to me the verses that we're memorizing. So it could have been an ordinary walk. I could have walked up Burlingame Avenue and gone into a shop and got all bewildered or something. But actually I was listening to Srivas Pandit Prabhu, and after my walk, I didn't actually even notice I was walking. I just got home and it's like, yeah, right, I went on a walk. But I was listening to the verses and having discussion and things like that. And then there are other people I keep in touch with, and then also a dose of the most important aspects of devotional service every day can keep you on a higher level. Chanting good japa, make japa great again. Always come back to that your japa will save you. If you have good japa, and you actually honor your japa beads, you honor your vow, and you really do the best you can with the energy you have every day to finish your rounds with as much attention as possible, then there's a way that the holy name really helps you. That's the first thing. And then also, if you can hear from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam and Prabhupada's other books, something every day, then that mix is really powerful. Association with devotees, whenever you can, and hearing and chanting good japa. Then you'll stay enthusiastic. Be in good association. So now, is there another one? Now let's take a 3-minute break, and we're going to come back here. When you're on your, actually 5-minute break. When you're on your break, ask somebody about their experience in chanting this morning, and what it was like to just be thinking about coming into that environment where we're chanting together, any kind of intentionality you had, any realization you had, any hesitancy, whatever it is, share with a friend, and that person will share on your behalf when we come back. You got it? Okay, see you in 5 minutes. Hare Krishna. And anybody online also, if you have things, you can send them in. We'll try to get to it. Did you have a nice break? Yes. Okay. Did anybody share with you what their realizations were about the japa this morning? Did you get permission to share? Okay. Let's hear how it went. We're just bringing attention to the importance of japa on our campaign, Make Japa Great Again. And if you do that every day, again means every day. So if you keep doing this, life is a string of single choices, incidents, one after another. And if you make this each day an opportunity to have great japa, then you'll build your spiritual life and you'll feel encouraged, because nothing is so encouraging as making progress in devotional service. Go ahead.
So I spoke to Nitisha Mataji.
Uh-oh.
I spoke to Nitisha Mataji, and she was saying that this is her first japa circle. Before that, she came for Mangal Aarti once and she chanted with devotees, but today was definitely more focused for her. Especially she mentioned because, you every 15 minutes you read a verse or, say something. So that was very helpful for her chanting, and she thinks that she may try it at her home chanting also when, like sometimes she feels it's getting mechanical, maybe she'll read a verse or so. So that's what
That's
she
a great
shared.
idea. You can keep a book stand in front of you and have your favorite shlokas ready, and every once in a while take a short break and look and re-inspire. And you can also create japa circles anywhere else. Invite people over to your house and or your family. You can get together and just chant in a circle. It makes some more power. And also, if you bring Tulsi into the middle, and Prabhupada mentions this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that if you chant to Tulsi, you'll get special powers for your devotional service. Okay, let's hear more. Okay.
Shraddha Mataji and I were discussing how we both felt so tired from yesterday's fasting, but it was so exhausted. But when we saw you, like without any trace of tiredness and going on and on, like I was really amazed. Like there are some levels in Krishna consciousness, how enthusiasm works as we go up. I was just thinking about that, and also one more thing came to my mind is just like how you're reading in between. When I was in Sadhu Sangha one time, I was feeling sleepy, and I was thinking that I will never be able to chant this whole time because I will sleep through the chanting. But then I was talking to Shraddha Mataji for a few minutes before the japa circle, and then I really didn't know how the whole session went out. I was so alert, and my sleepiness went away. So I was just thinking how reading in between and discussing with devotees, like even for little time, like it just brings back the mood and helps us go beyond the body a little bit.
I'm glad to hear that. That's nice, because I was hoping nobody was getting annoyed by that. Okay, yes.
I heard that when we do japa in the morning, then it's not something that we have to do later, so it's not like a task, and it's not something that you have to worry about later in the day.
Yeah, that's definitely an impetus to finish early. Otherwise, drag it out throughout the day. Okay, go ahead, Gita Priya, right there.
I also realized or heard that when you're driving in the car, you always chant, and usually they're not that focused, so it's good.
You drive?
When you're sitting in the car.
At least you're sitting there.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
And then you look out the window and get distracted.
It's true. If you experiment with being more concentrated, you'll notice that there is a difference. For instance, even in sitting, I notice that if I sit still and don't rock, because the mind always wants to move. If I sit there and rock like this, and then I stop, I notice, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with rocking necessarily, but just from my own experimentation, I notice if I sit still after rocking, that I come to more attention, and I'm able to actually listen to the holy name. Yes. Kautukanaka. Servant of the source of all entertainment.
Thank you, Maharaj. I am servant of the source of all entertainment. Thank you. Maharaj, Anshu Prabhu shared with us his realization from Japa Circle. He said that it is so encouraging that you are coming all the way to help us in our Japa Circle. So that is the association of devotees, and that's why we get association of so many devotees in the morning, and that goes all the way throughout the week. I mean, if we have this association, he said this is so encouraging to have it, and every time we try to step up whenever we get the next chance by that association. He also shared a verse, it's not a verse, but I don't know the verse, but he said it's a teachings of Ramanujacharya, one of the 4 very important teachings, one teaching is that if you want to progress in devotional service, you should have association of devotees. So that's what he shared.
Yeah. I noticed the effects afterwards when I'm at home. Then I still feel the momentum that I got from sitting with the devotees to chant, and it encourages me at home, like, make it great. Make japa great again. Yes.
Actually, Maharaj, I'm always borderline given up on the fight to get up in the morning and make it to the class or something. I try, okay, 7:30 class, yes I can do. And then you sent the japa circle for 6. And I was like going to bed at 12:30, I'm like, yeah, not going to make it, no. And my son comes up and he says, Maharaj said to come for japa circle yesterday. I'm like, yeah? Like, yeah, I want to go. Because he has his bead bags for the past week and he's very enthusiastic about it. All of a sudden. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll think about it. And then 3:30, someone wakes me up. I'm like, what? It's time. I'm like, no, it's not time. It's 3:30. Go to bed. He's like, yeah, I'm going to bed. Okay, don't scold me. And he went off. And I set the alarm for 5:15, 5:30. And I said, okay, if you can wake up at 3:30 to go to Japa Circle, I can get up and take you there. And he made it here. And he sat. And I talked to him going back. I dropped him back. And I told him, so how was your japa circle? And he said, yeah, I only did 3 rounds. I said, what? You sat there for an hour and did 3 rounds? He said, yeah, I got hungry, then I wanted to move. And I said, that's okay, but you came. And that's really important.
It is.
And that's so nice. And I thought that, the association of devotees is so important, especially if they are in your house. And to find another devotee in your home who's more enthusiastic than you, that's the greatest joy.
Nice realizations, really powerful. Yes, Hansapriya.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So what I sensed while I was in the altar, but when everybody was chanting, and I thought that how merciful is the holy name, because you can start over every day. And we have a tendency, human nature, that, oh, I didn't do good yesterday, wasn't a really great japa, and you beat yourself up, and I'm never going to get out of this, and we know that this is the only rescue we have, because this is only one thing is going to get you out. And that one thing we're not able to do it right. But I just think that holy name is so forgiving and so merciful. And when it's done among the right environment and right place with the right devotees, with the right heart in right place, I just think that it just gives you the solace, and it just says how merciful is the holy name, and how Krishna is he's trying to be there with every step of our life.
Thank you very much. Individually, that's true, and also collectively. As a community, the more we're all focused on doing the japa, completing our rounds, the more we can progress in our expansion. And we have big ideas. We would like to continue to develop the ISKCON of Silicon Valley into something that's world-class, noticeable all over the world, and certainly all-encompassing within the Bay Area. And there's only really one basic way to get there. It's through spiritual power. And as we, as a group, the whole community, become more and more dedicated to our chanting 16 good rounds, or actually great rounds, then we'll find that collective power to be able to expand and do the kinds of things that we'd like to do. There's a few more. Yes.
Just on how Hansapriya Mataji had just mentioned about the holy name, I remember when Kanai Thakur Prabhu was here, he was telling us a story about how in the temple room there was a family, and the Prabhu was chanting, but he wasn't pronouncing the holy name correctly, and so he wanted to go correct the person to tell them this is not how this is how you should pronounce. But before he could do that, he saw his wife and all the he had a couple of children, and they also had little japa bags, and they were chanting. And so I just thought how the intention is what matters, and the holy name can be spread so far, and the intention is more important.
Yes, and there are verses that mention that the intention is the most important. It also does help if you check yourself and make sure that you're chanting the Mahamantra at intervals. And it can be revealing if you just put a tape recorder in front of you, your smartphone, and record listen to one round that you're chanting and just notice the speed, the kind of intensity, and also whether you're saying the mantra or not, because it's easy enough to start abbreviating as you go along.
Maharaj, Alex Prabhu shared that in a japa session when you were chanting, he said he was just meditating that Prabhupada has given you the bead bag and those are the only beads you are chanting, and he was just telling that feeling itself was very, very powerful for him to experience in this circle. So
nice. And that's the idea of the circles, picking up on the energy of all the devotees and giving us that boost that we need to keep going. Yes.
Hare Krishna. So I was talking to Appa Gaurani and she shared it's very nice, couple of things she shared. She's a doctor, so throughout her study and practice, and there were a few cases of jaundice that she saw, and she used to think that will they prescribe candy, but they didn't. And then she was wondering, whenever jaundice case came, actually they would not prescribe the candy. And then on the last day of her training and studies, somebody asked for the diet of a person who has a jaundice, and then the professor answered, they should be given sugar cane. Because those with jaundice cannot hold glucose in the system of their body, so they need to replenish that with sugar cane. So she was sharing that, that Prabhupada said that already. So that is one thing she shared. And then one more very nice thing she shared, that everyday japa, when she is chanting, she doesn't look forward to it as much. When there is japa circle, she is really looking forward to it, and there is a more relishing of the japa during the japa circle, and more looking forward to it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
And today, during the japa cycle, it was revealed that many of us also have jaundice. So
I had a question about that. Is there an explanation? Was that what you were saying, the explanation of how the glucose cures the jaundice?
So basically the liver stores glucose in the form of glycogen, and whenever we are not eating, so there is a constant level of glucose in the body maintained because of that store. So someone who has a chronic liver disease, in them the glucose is not stored properly. So if they drink glucose, it helps them to remain strong and energetic.
I see.
So
is it also a curative, besides being strong, or is it just maintains them, it gives them strength that they wouldn't otherwise have?
Yes, Maharaj. It is not as a mainstream cure, but as one of the first thing in the diet is recommended that they drink sugarcane juice.
Okay. Then the first thing in our diet that we're recommended to take is the holy name. And remember that if you have a good diet, remember Ricky Musano, don't make me tell the story again, but if you have a good diet, physically you'll be vibrant, you'll be healthy and so forth. And if you have a good spiritual diet, then you can expect good things. You can expect to be spiritually healthy, and that's the only way to be happy, is to actually be spiritually healthy. So it's worth reforming the diet and to making japa great again. And so we did come together. No one can say that we didn't try. We all came here early in the morning, chanted japa together. We heard from Srimad-Bhagavatam, chanted bhajans, had discussion. And these kinds of gatherings at the time may seem somewhat regular, or that we're used to them, but actually they're extremely consequential. And putting together a lifetime of such gatherings and hearing about Krishna fills up the heart, the mind with Krishna's names, forms, pastimes, and blessings. So thank you everyone who's taken the endeavor to come down here. Every one of you made a difference by being here. And thanks to everybody who joined us online from various places around the world. If we could show our appreciation by facing the camera, whichever way it may be, and saying Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Vanchakobdharuscha kripasindhabevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, hey, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman, Nachariyar Marman.